So I've had a lot of depth thought. I'm got the money for my inner tube and about to head out, but without getting into inner thought and perspective on decisions and everything. One unique variable that I realize into how I come off strange to people is, and hence why it would take a long time for me to figure out why and how it would make sense to commit to a lifelong relationship with an individual uh, as a parent, not a girlfriend in a weird situation where as a 35-year-old man you're being adopted. But uniquely enough, ultimately, I find myself in a position into which I've chosen to sort of anthropologically, on a psychological level, break down man's identity complexities in a world where they're ever growing, ever multiplied, ever vast, which is modern day melting pot America. And I see where and how certain individual based but intergrown umbrellas of identity structures prevalent in how one construes their pride, their how, who, what, in terms of how that character and person is sort of created individual, yet an interest of a group. Um, you know, always ranging out of things so much more obvious than religion, race, or circumstance. But even though naturally this comes off extraordinarily prejudiced, just like a German scientist trying to categorize 5 colors of DNA and geographic heritage. Hence why the Christians always get kind of annoyed with the Jews, because by the end of it, it turns into them treating us like some sort of breeding process of some type. Or at least them thinking that. But, for most Christians in the modern day, it's all about the therapy. It's not about being a Gentile, being told who to breed with. But, anyways, it's difficult trying to help people in different identities recognize how other identities see these identities manifest themselves in the world to better market and represent. My best example is when Confederates take significant offense to telling them it would be beneficial for them to take down the Confederate flag and leave it in the museums. It's a part of history, like you said. So leave it in the museums, have a few things, maybe things passed down, but don't reproduce that symbol and buy it and mass market it. I mean, that's weird. Just because of where we are now in 2020, for maintaining an identity structure that builds pride, not offense for either the carrier or the viewer. But, to all their own, I say. But, how I always, kind of work with the system of, we're going to put you with somebody immediately. We need you to have a family or a girlfriend or a certainty to America. Because I've fallen into this weird twilight zone where essentially I don't really have a friend or family or identity or national identity. And, naturally, psychoanalysts from all over America, aka citizens, have a peculiar perspective on what it emotionally, intellectually, and identifiably takes to, without any predisposition, put and gravitate a lifelong connection, whether it be sexual, whether it be opposite sex, whether it be family, whether it be friend, whether it be yada yada. I mean, all in all, you need to create relationships that involve friendship first if you're thinking for a life, and then generational interest after. So, I mean, if I were to be put alongside an elder for a lifelong relationship, they should think of themselves as me, their mentee, and they, my mentor, and first and foremost, a friend. Unless they have significant wisdom, which I would latch onto without them even liking me. Uh, so, that being said, if I were to be given an elder relation that I would be willing to commit to for a life without anything else, I would be willing to be Noam Chomsky's caretaker. Now, this puts me in a position where it's like, well, why did you get the perfect setup for your mission? I'm not saying I would. I'm just saying I went to school for elder care. My dream was to take care of my grandfather and learn from that and build on that in my business to answer, create, and manage the 2030 crisis from the baby boomers he produced. And one of them being my mother. And, Noam Chomsky is a wise man without any specific agenda or career or profession and interest. The wisdom I could engage him with and the ability to care for him for his end-of-life process. One individual I would love to be there for till the day he died, to enrich the end of his life, because he spent so much time not getting as much chance to really indulge philosophically in his art of thought, and more so having to be interviewed, questioned, and solutioned, and simulate what might be for the real world, which he personally doesn't like to get indulgent upon, because it puts him in a spot, and he doesn't like that. He wants to think philosophically. So if I could create programs for him as an individual and be his caretaker, not medically, because I haven't gotten any medical knowledge. I could learn basics, but he'd still need a real nurse. But I could be kind of like his confidant, right-hand man in his end-of-life process to enrich it, like Patch Adams. From a psychological standpoint, in a return for his wisdom, and hopefully enough money to, have some candy bar spending money while hopefully being given a room too, so I can be comfortable enough to do right by him as his right-hand man. But that will never happen. I'll never be able to get that out to anyone that can interconnect us, but I am thinking about emailing him. I do believe in God, so if he did actually read the email, I feel like somehow a little birdie would land on his shoulder to explain better if this random stranger makes sense to this variable, or, who knows, maybe we'll see each other in a dream before we die. But to be the caretaker of Noam Chomsky in his end-of-life process, to let him indulge totally in his philosophical wisdom, to indulge, create, document how brilliant and loving his mind is, from a practical standpoint, would be brilliant. Because he has all the therapeutic necessities to really engage any and all identities without any identity, to reinstitute a form unto which that oneness is present in the most complicated of variables which make us overlook that interwoven world. But anyway.